This is Take 5 with Bentley, Nevada. Today in the studio with me is James McDuffie. James, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Hi, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You are the cybersecurity guru right now for the business. I mean, there's a handful of people,
Sure.
but that's a big change in terms of focus. There really was never anybody dedicated to that focus in the past. So you gave me your title, but why don't, to make sure I don't get it wrong, go ahead and tell me what your title is in the business and then what you really do every day.
Yeah, sure. So I guess my technical title is Senior Staff Software Architect. And my focus areas are cybersecurity and edge solutions. So edge solutions are, anytime the software really engages with a lot of the edge components, and edge components for the Internet of Things industry is really hardware devices that are kind of deployed in somebody's plant. So anytime you're talking about bringing in a 3500, a 3701, or now the Orbit 60, those are all considered edge devices. So the connectivity pieces in terms of the overall networking scheme, that's what we talk about when we're talking about edge devices.
Well, the thing that's always characterized Bentley and vibration monitoring in general is a lot of that processing is done out at the edge. It's,
Absolutely, yeah.
You got the analog sensors in, the box is doing a lot of processing, and it's sending processed data back to the software environment. Because if it was just a fire hose streaming digitized waveforms, it would bring System 1 to its knees pretty quickly, I would think.
Yeah, so I think we did an analysis at one point, and the amount of data is actually pretty staggering, right? But a lot of other people in the industry, when they talk about IoT, Internet of Things, the golden goose, as it were, is being able to do those edge analytics. And that's what Bentley has kind of always done, is those on-the-edge analytics with live sub-second streaming data and, complex things, which is, a lot of the hardest parts of these analytics is doing the time synchronization across all the different types of sensor points. And the ability to have a box on the edge gives you that capability of actually doing the time synchronization for multiple instrumentation across the entire machine train, which is really powerful.
Well, and that kind of brings us to the reason for having you here, James, and that's when you've got these devices on the edge and you're connecting them up to dashboard, if you will, and DCS consoles and the internet so people can have remote access. Cybersecurity becomes a huge concern. Now, in the last few episodes, we've had Darren Evans in the studio, and he relayed that kind of the inception of Orbit 60, there were 200 plus customer interviews around the world. And so Darren logged a lot of miles and got a lot of feedback, but there was nothing higher on the priority list than cybersecurity.
That's right.
And that's really where you fit into the Orbit 60 platform, is that laser focus on making sure that it addresses that customer concern of cybersecurity.
Yeah, there was a lot of upfront work that was done in terms of trying to understand what it means to deploy a cybersecure solution to the industry. And, we look at the broader consumer space industries because you kind of watch the industrial space for the consumer space. The consumer space is usually 5 to 10 years ahead of us on most things. And, you could see a shift in the consumer space where everybody was going to a much more cybersecure place. But that's nice for us because we get kind of an example, and, they kind of get the run ahead in terms of playing with a lot of these different technologies. So now we're in a pretty comfortable spot where the rest of the industry knows what cybersecurity solutions really look like. And so when we started talking about what our next generation hardware, next generation 3500 looked like, it was like, well, we have this huge need from customers, and we can see a general trend even in the industrial space to be more cyber secure. So what does that mean that this new device actually needs to meet? What standards does it need to meet to be a truly cyber secure, product into the marketplace? And so, it was a really nice change of pace. And with that, obviously, you got to have people that are focused on it, because it really is a very large topic, especially, and I'm sure we'll touch on this in a little bit, as ISO 62443, industrial standards, what does the rest of the world expect out of cybersecurity solutions? So, there's definitely a lot of thought, and it's definitely a large topic. So yeah, you got people like me and Steve Gaskell and a couple other people in our organization really just hyper-focused on this guy.
Well, what we will do is talk next about the three main parts of the Orbit 60 ecosystem, if we want to think of it that way,
Sure.
and how cybersecurity comes into play on that. But I'm always amazed how quickly 5 minutes goes by on these podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're going to save that for our next installment. You've been listening to Take 5 with Bentley, Nevada, a Baker Hughes business,